Duncan, can you hear me? All right. Say, hey Duncan.
Hey, Duncan. Yeah, he can hear me. We're good.
We're good. Can you hear Debbie?
Yeah,
So when you're
he's very
ready.
quiet about those. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Debbie Duval, and I am the Star Island Corporation Board President. And on behalf of the board and the staff, I would like to welcome you here tonight. This is our 14th annual Starry Night, which is pretty cool, right? Yes. And I do have to tell you, it is my absolute favorite fundraiser that we do. And we are so pleased to once again be gathered in person, which we have been unable to do for quite a few years. So that's exciting as well. So as a nonprofit organization, we depend so much on the generosity of individuals like you and the many wonderful volunteers and events like this one to help us continue to offer over 60 conferences and programs each year. Your support allows us to bring thousands of people to Star Island each summer to experience this amazing special place that so many of us refer to as our spirit's home. It's truly magical. I think all of you know that, and the memories that are made last a lifetime. So I want to thank all of you for supporting Star here tonight, and thank you to all who support us throughout the year, including those of you who are watching on this live streamed event. So we have a very exciting night planned for you, and again, I am really thrilled to share in this time together with you. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our incredibly dedicated, competent, and amazing Star Island CEO, Joe Watts. You're very welcome.
Sweet. All right. Well, thank you, Debbie, our amazing, dedicated, and competent board president. And thanks to all the board who met earlier today to do the work and business of Star Island. But right now, I want to thank all of you for being here. And we do have a really, I'm going to try to be brief because I think the main event is, in fact, I know the main event's about to happen. But I do want to thank folks, everyone who helped to make this evening possible. First of all, I'd like to thank our sponsors, which include Fred C. Church Insurance, Underwood Engineers, also additional support from 5 Maples Development Communications. The wine tonight is donated by Peter Paul Wines, and the beer tonight is donated by Chapel in Maine up in Dover. So we're very grateful for all of those folks for supporting. Woo. Yes. And also, I'd like to thank our silent auction donors, people who donated, whether it be an activity or a workshop or a painting or an experience. They're downstairs. We encourage all of you to bid early and often on these amazing things which help to support Star Island. And for the folks of you who are viewing from home, we hope that you will consider making a donation to the annual fund, which you can do at starisland.org. I'd like to thank the staff who came together to pull this off. And some of those folks, it was definitely a group effort this year, include Kate Brady, John Bynum, Tim Dulay, Christina Willie McKnight. And also I want to offer special recognition to Justina Maggi, our conference center director who's coordinator overseeing the whole planning for this. Woo. Thank you. And I'm going to thank Mike Bray, our island registrar, later downstairs. So, all right, so with that, again, I just want to make it clear that all proceeds from this event do go directly to benefit Star Island Corporation, our nonprofit. And so thank you for just being here and participating, but also for bidding on those items. And Candy Cane, I mentioned, but I don't know if you all heard, is doing a raffle downstairs. And yes, her name is Candy Cane. So now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce this evening's speaker, Isaac Fitzgerald. We are, yes, absolutely. We are honored to have Isaac here with us tonight. I've known you for many years, since he was first a Pelican on Star Island, and I'm deeply grateful for you being here and doing this evening. So Isaac is the New York Times best-selling author of Dirtbag, Massachusetts, He appears frequently on the Today Show, and he's also the author of the best-selling children's book, How to Be a Pirate, which I think we might be hearing more about, as well as the co-author of Pen and Ink, Tattoos and the Stories Behind Them, and Knives and Ink, Chefs and the Stories Behind Their Tattoos, which was the winner of the IACP award. His writing has appeared in the New York Times, The Atlantic, Esquire, The Guardian, the Best American Nonrequired Reading, and numerous other publications. So this is a little tidbit. There's many quotes, but this is the one I liked and I wanted to share from the New York Times. Isaac nestles comfortably on a bar stool beside writers like Kerouac, Bukowski, Richard Price, and Pete Hamill. So with that, if you could join me in a round of applause, welcoming our speaker and Star Island Shoaler, Isaac Fitzgerald.
All right, I'm sure I am bright red. Please, ladies and gentlemen, can we give it up for Joe? Come on. I've got like a little story that I'll get to that involves Joe in just a little bit. Nothing that's gonna get you in trouble. It's all right. Truly, I'm honored to be here. Is this? I feel like, am I pointing it? All right, it's all right. All right. Also, thank you to everyone that's joining us online. This feels like a homecoming in so many ways. I'm so happy to be here and spend an evening with so many shoalers. I see so many familiar faces, and that makes me so happy. And then there are so many people here who I'm sure yet to meet, but we are all brought together because of our love of this incredibly special place, Star Island. Before I get started on tonight's talk, I just want to make like one, it almost feels like a disclaimer, it's maybe a little bit of a disclaimer. I worked at Star a long time ago. So we can maybe say like names have been changed to protect the innocent. I'm just trying to say maybe the rules were different, maybe the pay was a little different. Any story I'm going to tell tonight, just know that it was a long time ago. What's the statute of limitations in New Hampshire? It was a while. It was a while. But truly, the first time that I set foot on Star Island, I remember getting off the boat and stepping on the dock. I was 16 years old. I had a bag over my shoulder, and I was a Pelican. I was not there as a comfrey. I was lucky enough to have a family member who had introduced me to this incredibly special place. And I immediately, like so many of us, fell instantly in love. It is such a beautiful, gorgeous, special piece of land right there, out there. I know everyone debates it. I still say 10 miles off the coast of Portsmouth. Oh, it's only, whatever. I stick with 10 miles out there in the Atlantic. What I'm going to talk to you about tonight is how I came to be a writer and how Star Island incredibly influenced that journey. I'm talking about a place with no roads, no cops, no movie theaters. When I was 16 years old, there was only one phone for every employee. There was no cell phone reception yet. You truly felt like you were stepping into this incredible, immaculate bubble where you got to kind of be who you were, and you had to, in a way, figure out how to entertain yourself. And what that meant was meeting other people and talking to them. Figuring out other people's stories, and figuring out how to tell your own. Now, I wasn't new to that at 16. I grew up in Boston, and I grew up in the South End, Mass. It was a different neighborhood. It was the 80s. It's a little nicer now. I grew up in a place called Haley House. It was run by the Catholic worker. I know. Unitarians, we'll get there. You guys broadened my horizons a lot. But yes, I was a Catholic. Don't hold it against me. But I grew up in this place called Haley House, and it was a shelter for the unhoused. My parents were having a rough time. But what that meant was that I grew up surrounded by people, interesting people from all walks of life. And again, we got to share stories at a very young age. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure some people were very annoyed by me. But for the most part, a lot of the people in that shelter were very kind. And I would be inquisitive, and I would ask them about themselves, and they would tell me their stories. My parents didn't have a lot, but one thing they did have was an exceptional love of books, which I'm sure many people in this room share that love of literature. Books were incredibly important to them, as was education. We didn't have much, but they made sure I was always reading. They were making sure that I was always at the library. I remember going to the Boston Library. If you're familiar with it, there are these two statues of women in the front. And I used to pretend that they were my moms. I had a mom, for the record. She was very present. I don't know how she felt about that. It's a long way of saying that I was a very imaginative kid. From inner city Boston, we moved out to rural Massachusetts. The joke that I make is I say, oh, you know, if you go far enough west in Massachusetts, it gets really pretty. Everyone says, yeah. I say, before there. North central Massachusetts, in a little town called Athol. From Gill. And just for the record, I think we know each other. I'm so glad that the rest of that B word was bookstore. But we know each other. Yeah, we'll talk after. But truly, Athol, Massachusetts, I'll give you one guess. I'm sure this is the kind of crowd that actually already knows this joke, but I'll give you one guess what they call people from Athol, Massachusetts. In Massachusetts. Okay, we got it. You're a step ahead. You can't call a book, there's children in the room, you know what I'm trying to say. Massachusetts. That's why my book's called Dirtbag, Massachusetts. They would not allow me to call it that. But so I get out there, I'm very, very lucky. My home life gets a little hard, but because of that, I get a scholarship. Some adults who care about books, who care about education, my teachers, some librarians, rallied around me, helped me apply to a couple of schools. I got a scholarship at the age of 14, which got me out of my house. I love my parents very much. That's a whole long other story. You can buy Dirtbag, Massachusetts, figure that one out. But at the time, that was what was best for me, and that was what was best for them. But I was still going home during the summers. 14, 15, I was still going home during the summers. And that's when my half-brother, who didn't live with us, introduced me to Star Island. Because here's a place that I could work and live. That got me out of my house at the age of 16. So in high school and college, I had a ton of different jobs. But Star Island was one of the first jobs that felt like it was fundamental. This wasn't just a gig. This was going to become a core of my personality. So I'm going to stop here real quick. Again, 16 years old, getting on the pier. And I'm just going to tell you a few Star Island stories. And then we're going to move on. And I'm going to keep an eye on the clock so I don't go too long. When I'm 16 years old, let's just put it this way. Again, is this factually accurate? Maybe. It was a good story. It's a good story. I'm pretty sure, the way it's been told to me, although I do think Justine is in the room, and she might actually have also worked there when she was 17. Am I right in that? 16, right? Okay, so I think I might be wrong. I was told at one point that I was the last 16-year-old hired, and that after that end of season, there was a talk. And that they were like, this needs to be 18 and up. But I think actually, if you study it, I think Justina might be in the room. I think Jess Can might have worked under the age of 18. Am I right in that? No, you were 18 up. All right. All right. There's a few Pelicans here who I think worked before the 18 rule. Yeah, TK. There we go. All right. So this was 1999, end of season. I'm 16 years old. We worked really hard. Sometimes we had some fun. And on one particular night, we had a lot of fun. And it was just the way the wind was blowing. It wasn't like we were being over the top. And it was just a hot night, so it was like the windows were open. But it was a very loud evening. And for the first time in Star Island's history, it was described to me as a wait try that morning that a conference was going to pull their tips for the first time ever in all of history. I know that's not how it works anymore. Like I said, Joe, it was a long time ago. And so we came together. A bunch of us got in a room, and we said, we got to figure this out, mainly because we want to have money. But also probably because we felt a little bad. And we understand that this is a special place, and that's what makes it so special. That there are so many different people from so many different walks of life with so many different ways of understanding spirituality, nature, what makes this place special, freedom. You want to represent all the different views. So we came up with a song called the Sorry Song. And that morning, you were there, yeah, you still, I couldn't remember the lyrics for the life of me. I should have emailed you. We're really, 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 really sorry. That was the gist. And we performed the Sorry Song that morning. So I want you to keep that in mind, a group of people coming together. Another quick story, which is kind of about luck, but also connects with how I started to think that art and writing was a real career you could do, which I'll get to in a little bit more, but this story is about Pel's show. Pel's show was incredibly special to me. Again, don't forget, one phone for all the employees. I'd never been in a place where you had to make your own entertainment like this. That made it unique. That made it wonderful. And all of a sudden, I'm watching people I admire, people I think are cool, getting up and writing songs, doing skits, performing for the guests. I was so moved. I'd never thought I didn't have the guts to do something like that. So one day I decided, I do remember a magic trick I used to do when I was 8. And it involved, and I'm not going to get into the physics here, because just like facts, physics, listen, there's things I have a loose knowledge. Anyways, the basic physics was there's 3 pint glasses with water in them, and then you put paper towel rolls, and then there's a pie plate, and then like toilet paper rolls, and then there's 3 eggs. And you take a broomstick, and you cock it back, and you let it go, and the pie plate goes fine, but the eggs drop right into the glass. And I was like, I've done that before. I'll do that at Pel's show. People will get a kick out of it. For the record, I might not have been in 16. This might have been 17. This might have been my first full season. I had blonde tips. It was a different time. So, with the young person's confidence, I didn't practice. It worked when I was a kid. Eventually, like right before Pel's show, I realized maybe I should practice this. So I went out to Dishy Rock, that rock out there behind the kitchen, and I kind of tried to set it up, and I let it loose, and the eggs went flying. Yeah, that's right. That's how I felt too. And so then I was like, well, maybe it's not paper towel. Maybe it's more like toilet paper rolls here, paper towel. Did it again. At a certain point, somebody in chamber was like, you can't keep stealing these things from us. So I just got on stage and I did it. And at Pel's show, I sat there, I was starting to do it, and as I was setting it up, I was shaking so much that I dropped an egg. It broke. Before that, I'd handed out rain jackets, I'd put trash bags over people in the front row, and when it dropped, I felt so lucky. I got out of it. I don't have to do it. It looks like a big buildup to a joke, and then I'm not going to do it, and we're fine. Except the wonderful, loving, supportive confreres of Star Island started chanting, "Get another egg. Get another egg. Get another egg." And so I had to run back to the kitchen, and this was when they had stacks and stacks and stacks of eggs in the back, and I grabbed an egg, and I came out, and I did it, and I'll never forget the person who's running the whole show in the back of the face, and we were all very scared. But I let it fly, and the eggs dropped right into the glasses. So that's luck, right? So that was luck. The first thing that I was talking about, people coming together, that's a bit of community. And I'm going to tell you one last story, and then I'm going to move on to talk about how to be a pirate a little bit, which is Star Island's a place of traditions. That's really important. It's also important that traditions can grow and change, and sometimes you recognize that traditions are stupid. So there's a tradition when I was working there, not an official one, not like one that was in the pamphlet, where if you worked as a waitress, if you could clear a whole table with one tray and one trip, and then you cleared a whole other table with one tray and one trip, you were considered a waitress Jedi. I'm riding high off my egg trick working. So I think I could do this on a soup day. I love, like, this is the only room where that hits. Nobody knows what that, you are the only room where that hits. So I did it. But like I said, high on the egg thing working out. So I was like, I'm going to do it in one trip. So I get a whole table. It's on one tray. I get a whole table on another tray. And I get down and I get it up, and it's got the extra bowls and the Crocs that are like who knows how old. And I do two. For the record, I didn't notice at the time, but a friend would tell me everybody else had left the room. Everybody knew this was not going to end well. Except for my one friend who, by the way, there's a host or a hostess always, right? This was unfair to my friend. The actual hostess was on a day off, and it was a buddy of mine who was covering for her that day, and I took advantage of that, and that was wrong. So he's the only guy that stuck around, and he's holding the door open, just praying that nothing's going to go wrong. And I walk down the entire long dining hall, and I'm going to do it. And then I just feel one tray, glance off the door jamb, and I go this way. There will be a lot of debate between me and my friend for the rest of our lives if at that point he let go of that door and ran, or he stayed with me to the bitter end. But what I remember is all of a sudden I was very alone, and everything but the silverware had broken. Manager walks up to me. And again, we can do math, so Paul Jennings walks up to me. And he looks me dead in the eyes. And this was early in his time. And I think he already had been like, well, we shouldn't have let him on when he was 16, and now look at this. And I just remember looking at him. And I said, Paul, am I next voted? And he said no. And I did. I was worried. I was thinking that might have been a dumb enough move to lose your job. I worked at Friendly's in Gardner before that, and they would have fired you for a lot less. He said no. I said, Paul, are you taking it out of my paycheck? He said, Isaac, if we took it out of your paycheck, you would work for free for the next 3 summers. I don't think you understand how old those Crocs were. But what he did was he gave me a bit of a moment. He didn't come down hard on me. He gave me space to continue. And what then happened was an incredible lifelong relationship with Star Island. If I'd gotten fired a couple of months into my first real season, I would have been gone. So that comes to a little bit of acceptance. Go ahead. Yeah, you can clap. So that comes into a little acceptance, but also mentorship. So just hold those. Community, luck, mentorship. Again, Star Island is wonderful. I meet a bunch of wonderful people. That's what happens when you work there. All of a sudden, your world becomes so much wider. All of a sudden, I knew people. I'd never been farther west than Montana, but people were like, and that's when I was 7, but people were like, oh, we're going to move to San Francisco. We're moving to New York. We're doing this. Pels are getting, it's going to be 7 of us in a 1-bedroom. We don't know. We'll make it work. And that's exciting. That's wonderful. It's a great place to build relationships, people that are going to be your lifelong friends, lifelong relationships. So I did. I ended up out in San Francisco. A lot of the guys moved to New York, and I think they're a little suspect that I didn't go that way. But that's a whole other story. And this is where we're going to get into writing a little bit, and then I promise you we'll get to how to be a pirate. When I go to San Francisco, it is with a bunch of pals. And it was like a 1-bedroom situation. At that point, I'm starting to recognize that I might be interested in writing as a profession, but I don't even know what that looks like. I just know that I love books and I love stories. So I go out to San Francisco, and that is where a fellow Pelican, a very dear friend who herself goes on to become a wonderful writer, and we are still in touch to this day, says to me, hey, I saw a sign. It said, bookmaking and storytelling workshop. Why don't you go check that out? So I walked down there. And it's a place called 826 Valencia. And it's a creative writing nonprofit for kids. But just for the record, I didn't know that at the time. I was just like, finally, somebody's going to teach me how to write a book. I walk in. Immediately it becomes clear to me what it is. This is an open house to get adult volunteers to work with children. We are all growing. We are all becoming better people. That is the point of the journey of life. At 23, I was a little bit of a jerk, and I wasn't really interested in kids. But I was smart enough to know that if I just got up and walked out, I would look like a real asshole. So I sat there, and they talked about 826 Valencia. Just for the record, there's one here, there's one in Boston, just south of here, 826 Boston. It's a fantastic organization. Look it up. They're wonderful. But while I'm sitting there, I'm getting, they're just giving the whole spiel, and I notice on the wall, there are all these pieces of paper that are framed. And they're typed up pages, but they're covered in ink markings. And I raised my hand, and I say, hey, what are those? And they said, oh, well, just for the record, this nonprofit for children was started by McSweeney's, which is the local San Francisco publishing house, and all these pieces of paper are from manuscripts that actually became books. And we frame them and we put them up here because writing itself is a very individualistic endeavor. It can be a very lonely art form. But we leave the edit copies up so that the kids can learn, whether it's a volunteer, a family member, a teacher, even a friend can give them great feedback on their story and they can make it better. That is the first moment in my life where I realized writing is a craft and it's something you can get better at. Up until that moment, I loved books, but I thought writing was a gift from God. You either had it or you didn't. I thought you sat in an ivory tower, you typed a perfect manuscript, you hit print, you sent it to New York, they put a cover on it, you're a millionaire. Last part's really not true, but that's a whole other story. In that moment, I recognized, oh, actually, if you talk to people, just like my buddy Corey, who taught me trucks back in the day, or I'm going to be really honest, Star Island stuff, I was more front of the house. Most of the paint jobs or stuff I had to do, they had to do again. But if you tried again and again, you could get better at it. And that's when that opened up a whole new world for me of writing as craft. And I remember sitting there as the woman explained it to me, and I was just like, yeah, we should teach 8-year-olds this. I was 23. Nobody had told it to me. Nobody had said that to me. All of a sudden, it opened up a whole new world. Again, 826 Valencia led to community. It led to me meeting so many people. McSweeney's, same thing. All of a sudden, it starts to become a theme in my life. Haley House, my boarding school, Star Island, San Francisco. Build a community. Get people who are like-minded or totally different, but willing to talk. And you can actually start to open up your world in all these new exciting ways. Through that little nonprofit, I started a website called The Rumpus. I met this wonderful woman, Wendy McNaughton. Joe mentioned my first 2 tattoo books. We did 2 tattoo books together. You don't know her name when I say it like that, but I'll say it this way. She illustrated a cookbook called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. Wendy McNaughton. So I got to work with her, collaborating, like the Sorry song, leads to some really special stuff. So I'm gonna get to this part right now, and then we're gonna talk a little bit after, okay? But that is it, right? There's community. The next thing I want to tell you a little bit about is luck. Eventually, after 10 years in San Francisco, my brother, who lives right here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and I'm sorry, he told me I had, no, he didn't actually, he didn't. I'm sorry, if you're watching, you did not do that. But I need to plug it. He's got a new place called the Bowie Shack, which is right there on Badger. Oh, it's the best. We love Bowie Shack, right? Real heads will know Dos Amigos Burritos, and they've got a great spot in Concord now. He also has the New Hampshire Pizza Company, which is also out in Concord. He's a wonderful guy, also a former Pelican. He has a kid. I already know that I'm going to be the weird uncle. I don't want to be the weird uncle who's 3,000 miles away. So I moved back to the East Coast. And that's where something incredible happens. I'm sorry, I moved back to the East Coast and you guys clap, so I got to be honest. I moved to New York, and I'm sorry. If you want to take back your claps, it's okay. Hey, I won't lie. I actually know a lot of wonderful Star Island people who are from New York originally, including, I believe, Justina, Rachel Lyon, also a great author who was mentioned previously, the Winers. Anyways, all right. If I start naming names, we're going to be here all night. So I come back to New York. This is where luck comes in. My backyard, and I'm not talking down the block. I'm not talking in the same neighborhood. I'm talking back to back. There's a man in that backyard. I'm in my backyard. He is drinking rosé. I am drinking rosé. We start talking through the fence. Again, just being open, just being social, being open to the world. We start to build a friendship. He says, oh, why don't you just come around the side? Come on over. He said his name. I didn't recognize it because when I was reading his books as a kid, I didn't know how to pronounce the last name Sheska.
Oh, are you kidding?
But his name is John Sheska.
Oh my God.
And he wrote The Stinky Cheese Man and Other Fairly Stupid Tales, as well as the true stories of the Three Little Pigs. So John Sheska invites me over, and in that moment, in my head, I have this idea of a kid's book about tattoos, and I'm like, but I can't weird out John Sheska. So I wait 2 hangs, and then 3 hangs, and then 15 hangs, and then like 20 times of hanging out with him. And eventually I say, you know what, John, I've got an idea for a kid's book. And I tell it to him. It's not a very good, well-baked idea in my head. I just say, I don't know, like a book for kids. Like my friend's kid calls me the stamped man. So like something that explains tattoos to kids. He's like, that's a terrible idea. And I was crushed. I was crushed. In that moment, I thought I had overstepped. I thought I'd taken advantage of a situation and I should have just kept it to myself. But luckily what came 0.5 seconds later was, if you come over here every other Friday for the rest of the summer, I'll tell you how to take that very bad idea and turn it into a book that kids might actually care about. Wow. Give it a, yeah, how lucky. So again, community, luck, and then mentorship, forgiveness, giving somebody a little bit of a second chance. So with that all in mind, oh, sorry, I want to just one real quick more shout out to John Sheska because he's amazing. I just need you to know that I did walk in that first Friday and like he had every kid's book off of his bookshelves, which was to say like it looked like something out of a movie, just towers of picture books everywhere. They were like on the sofas and on the floor and on the coffee tables. And he was just like, I'll be in the backyard having a little bit of wine. You read all of these. So it was a real like Karate Kid situation. But I did feel very, very lucky. But so again, I just want you to know that every step of the way, a lot of the tools that I used to get to live this dream that I get to live, that I've been working towards for almost 20 years now, came from this very special place that we all share. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Star once I'm finished reading the book. But is it all right if I read to you How to Be a Pirate? Yeah. All right. I'm going to say one last thing about my brother, too. He has 2 kids now. And I did look at him and his kids while I was thinking about writing this book. And the main character is named after my niece, Cece. But the one thing I noticed was that my brother, if there was a book that the kids loved and it was long, he would hide it behind the couch. So I promise you it's very short. How to Be a Pirate. You can't be a pirate. Feeling real glum. Cece was mad. Who were those boys to say she couldn't be a pirate? They had probably never even been on a boat. But Cece knew somebody who had. Grandpa? In here, Cece. What's it like to be a pirate? Why do you think I know anything about that? Grandpa asked. And tell me, why do you want to know about pirates? Okay, so for the young people, or the young at heart, we see Cece, and we see Grandpa. Is there anybody else in the room? There's a dog. Can you do me a favor and keep an eye on the dog for me? Thank you. Cece took a deep breath. And I do this with the kids, but let's do it here too. Let's just... Nicely done. Because, she said, the boys are pretending to be pirates, and I wanted to play too. I even brought my sword. But they said, you can't be a pirate. And what if they're right? I don't know how to be one. But maybe you do, because of your ship. I know pirates have tattoos, so I was thinking, maybe you know all about them. Can you teach me? So you want to know about pirates, eh? Asked Grandpa. Well, I guess the first thing a pirate needs to be is brave. A pirate seeks out adventure and isn't afraid of obstacles ahead. How's the dog doing? Yeah, that's right. Not great. That's right. What else? What else? Asked Cece. You have to be quick. A pirate is ready to react to danger at any moment. And I usually say to the kids, give me an E. Do you guys want to give me an E? E! Nicely done. Another one? Cece asked. It isn't all about danger, though, whispered Grandpa. A pirate knows how to have fun. Give me a yippee. Nicely done. More, yelled Cece. Another thing a pirate must be is independent. Having a good crew is important, but at the end of the day, a pirate must face her problems on her own. Can you give me a wee? Nicely done. I see Grandpa. I see Cece. Where's the dog? Here? Oh, all right. Dog's not having a good time. All right, I'm not going to make you do this, but the kids then cover their heads because the dog's covering his head. But do you know the most important quality a pirate should have? Asked Grandpa. It's something even more important than being brave or quick, knowing how to have fun, or even being independent. Is it treasure? Cece asked. Or cannons? The most important thing a person can have, pirate or not, is love. And you can see the Grandpa has the tattoo of Cece over the heart. They're in the kitchen. The dog is happy. Everybody's hugging. Cece ran, her feet swift and her heart strong. I am going to make you do this part. I'm going to say it, then you're going to say it. I'm brave. I'm quick. I'm independent. And I'm fun. I love being a pirate. Give yourselves a round of applause. Nicely done. I'm going to tell you a couple things about this book. One is if you look at the beginning, it's those boys telling her she doesn't know how to hang. And then at the end, they're very, very happy. That's because sometimes people don't always make the right choice the first time. By coming back, Cece gave them a chance to be like, no, hang out. We can play. We can make this work. And so they feel better about that, right? It's something that I try to instill in children. It's okay when I present this at an elementary school, even if you messed up, it's okay to try and be kind the second time. The other thing that I'll say about this book is it's not really about tattoos. And it's not really about pirates. Because as John Cheska pointed out, a tattoo book for kids is a bad idea. And if you get into like what pirates actually do, this is not really good for kids either. What it's about is how sitting around and telling stories with people you care about can brighten your world. If you look at the beginning of this, the colors are very bland. They are very, very muted. But as you go through, they get brighter and brighter and brighter until there's the first and there's the last. Because, go ahead. Yeah, thanks. The more we sit around, the more we talk to one another, the more that we share our stories, the brighter not only our world, but other people's worlds will be. And that is something that I've learned my whole life, that is true, but was driven home in such a clear and special way to me. Sorry, getting a little verklempt. But at Star Island, it's a place where I learned about community, and it's a place where I definitely learned more than I probably should have about luck. And it's a place where a lot of people, many of those people who performed in those Pell shows, or managers of mine, or watched out for me and took care of me, showed me some mentorship. And so I'm gonna leave on like one last story. And that is about our current manager, Joe Watts. Sorry, I told you. Again, long time ago. And if there's anybody that's like gonna be a Pell soon, don't do this. At the time, I can't remember. Joe, I think you were the head engineer. Is that right? You were the head engineer for like when I was messing up. There was a couple of us that had a good idea because they used to do it all the time back in the day. So why couldn't we do it now? Which is we're gonna swim across Gosport Harbor to Smutty Nose. But we're gonna do it at night. And we're gonna do it in wetsuits because it's cold at night. So we stole some, didn't steal, that's a strong, we borrowed some wetsuits from the lab and we prepped them and we were ready. I think my two other collaborators were very good at keeping their mouths shut. It will come as no surprise to anyone in this room at this point that I probably was not. I think by lunch, most of the staff knew that we were planning it, and by dinner, definitely everyone did, and some upper management as well. Joe knew my older brother who'd worked on the island. I don't think Joe knew me that well yet. But he did know something about me, or apparently, or maybe it was just a gamble. I don't know. It's one of the things I've always wondered about. But I have an intense fear of sharks. I know it's ridiculous. More likely to get hit by lightning. They're perfect killing machines. They haven't evolved in like 6 million years. But I talked to my collaborators, and they're like, it's in the harbor. They would never come in. It's fine. This is before that giant one, so somebody took a photo off the pier. And it was about like an hour or two before we were gonna disembark. And I'll just never, very casually, you know, in OBR, down there in the underworld, Joe just kind of casually walked up to me and he said, hey man, how you doing? And I said, oh, good. Yeah, Joel's little brother, yeah. Can I just show you something? Yeah. And like, again, I don't know, like, did you pull it out or like, was it hanging on your wall already? And like, we went up to I can't remember. But somewhere there was a map. And on that map, it was color-coded to where great whites hang out. And again, I know it's debatable, but I still go with 10 miles out. And about 10 miles off the coast of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, was the brightest color purple that I had ever seen. And it was just a dot. And Joe said to me, hey, I just want to share this, but I don't know if you know this, but like, this is actually a place where like a lot of great whites hang out. And then he walked away. Guidance. Trust. I quickly folded. I told my two compatriots what was happening, and they quickly folded as well. The wetsuits were returned to the lab. So to that point, one, I want to give Joe one more special recognition. And I just also want to say thank you all so much for all that you do. Star Island, more than anything, is an incredible special place that we all take care of. I still visit every year, even if I can only get out for a day. It is so, so important to me. And it is a place that we need to protect. Because go ahead, yeah. There's not many spaces like it left. Or another way of putting it is there's a ton of them, but they exist because people learn special lessons like they learn in the spaces like Star Island. So I know things are a little tight right now, but if you can just dig deep, if you can just bid high, and like Joe said, bid often. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have, but I just need you to know this book would not have existed without Star Island. My next book, Dirtbag, Massachusetts, which, as Joe said, was a New York Times bestseller. It came out in July of this year. There's one other Star Island story in that book, which I will not tell you. You will have to buy it to read it. But thank you all so much for having me. Thank you, Scholars. Star Island forever. I deeply, deeply appreciate it. And I mean, I could also just do questions while we're all bidding. So Joe, if you want to.
Does anyone have any questions? Let's
Hit me. Let's do something. We'll do fire round. Go.
Did the Starry song get you tips?
Of course. Yes. Yes. Aaron, who I believe helped work on it. Right?
I was a singer.
Yeah.
Jeremy Parker wrote it.
That's right. But yes, that's absolutely right. Of course, they all came around and we got our tips and history survived. Nobody has ever removed their tips from Star Island. Go ahead, sir.
One sentence on the age from between 16 and 23. You make quite a jump.
Oh, that's absolutely true. Give me 1 second. I thought I had grown so much, yet I had a long way to go. It's not, but there's a wonderful independent bookstore. Yeah, that was on me. I should have brought a bunch up, but I didn't. I came up on a bus. It would have been a lot. From Brooklyn. I was going to say that 4 a.m. tomorrow. No. But no, absolutely. It's Dirtbag, Massachusetts. You can find it most places. Thank you, though, for asking that. And that's it. Up, one more.
Last question.
And with that, I will never rat anyone out.
That was awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Watts, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was actually inspirational. I expected that, and you over-delivered for me, at least. And I think I just was thinking about your concepts of community, learning from your mistakes, moving forward, and doing it together. And I just think it's, I love the color coming through. I didn't pick up on that. I'm glad you pointed that out. And I think that's exactly what we need right now in the world, and even at Star Island. So I cannot thank you enough, Isaac. Thank you so much for that. I would also say, yes, now go forth, inspired by Isaac and the community that is Star Island, to enjoy some live music from Seth Gooby, some drinks and some snacks, and 2 things. Again, there's a silent auction that you can bid on, and also Candy will have a raffle for 3 baskets. So thanks so much for coming. Thank you all in attendance online, and you can be with us in spirit by going to starisland.org and donating to the annual fund. Thank you all. Bye-bye.